Hello. I'm told we're live. Is that accurate? All right, cool. Hi everyone. It's great to imagine that you guys are all there. I hope that's accurate. Thanks so much for showing up. I just want everybody to. You're probably at your house right now or your apartment or something, and I just want everyone to quietly to yourself do a little Earth Day. So everyone, and I know I'm gonna feel if you're not doing it. So I know some of you didn't do it. So on the count of three, just quietly to yourself. It's coming up. We want to get it in the zeitgeist. So 1, 2, 3, Earth Day. Okay, cool. Something like 30% of you didn't do it, but that's okay. 70% is great. Guys, I'm so happy to be moderating this panel. Who am I? Great question. Every single one of you is asking, why is this guy talking to me right now? And I'll answer, my name is Rollie Williams. I'm a comedian and I'm a climate science and policy graduate student at Columbia University. I have a comedy series called Climate Town on YouTube. And if you have time in your life, go check that out after this. But enough about me. Let's talk about our panelists here. We got a couple of big brains on this panel, and they got some great ideas, and they're ready to tell us a little bit about what they're working on and what they're up to. So I'm going to introduce them together, and then we're going to go in order of how I introduce them, which is in no particular order, except I guess it's reverse alphabetical by first name. So ladies and gentlemen, and everyone out there, please give a little round of applause to yourself and to the panelists for Mr. Todd Fernandez and Lemanuel Bitsoi. Please give a little bit up. Okay, very nice. All right, Todd, great. I'm so happy that you're on here. Just give us a little bit of your background and what you've been up to.
All right. Hi, everybody. I'm very happy to be here to launch the Earth Bill today, 2030 Moonshot for Earth, that will effectively stop our pollution from electricity, cars, and food production, achieving 80% of the pollution solution and 100% of the political solution, because it directly tackles the corporate power controlling DC, big ag, big pharma, big oil, in one short bill that requires 100% renewable electricity, electric vehicles, and regenerative agriculture by 2030. I come from the gay rights movement and worked very hard to get the Equality Act filed, which was a long internal struggle in our movement. It has since passed the House twice and is pending in the Senate, facing the filibuster, which we have to fix. Before the Equality Act, we've been trying for decades and not passing any federal civil rights legislation because it was all splintered in different bills. We didn't have a collective demand that was exciting and gave full equality instead of pieces. Now the Equality Act is everyone's demand, and that's what the Earth Bill can be if we unite, which is the real challenge in any movement, uniting for real political power. I also worked briefly on the comprehensive immigration reform and marriage equality and the Massachusetts Brownfields Act. And on climate, I led the push for the Off Fossil Fuels Act, written by Food and Water Watch and March for Science. And for that, in 2018, we got 350 NYC and Sunrise, who was working on the No Fossil Fuel Money Pledge, with Food and Water Watch and the Democratic Socialists of America. And it turned out DSA was working to elect AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who pledged support for the OFF Act. And after our work gaining about 50 co-sponsors, Sunrise went to Pelosi's office, AOC showed up, and the rest is Green New Deal history. Since then, we've compiled over 150 expert reports and bills and laws into one big policy digest. And reviewing all of this in various coalition efforts, the Earth Bill emerged as the obvious demand, mandates on key industries to stop our pollution by 2030, because that's what the carbon clock requires. And I look forward to talking more about this. And again, I'm very happy to be here. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much for being here, Todd. If you're at home, give it up for Todd. Coming in, spitting fire right out of the gates. That's gonna be hard to beat. Two quick housekeeping notes. Number one, we're going to have a Q&A session at the end. So if you have questions or if you have, like thoughts or anything, go ahead and leave them in the chat, leave them on the Facebook or on YouTube comments. If we're on, whatever other medium we're on, leave them in the comment section of that. So that's questions. And number two, Todd was just blitzing us with information, and I noticed our ASL interpreter Jana's hands were a little bit on fire, so she's going pretty quick. So if you're gonna give us a blitz of information, do it a tiny bit slower. That just goes for everybody who's talking. But Todd, I super appreciate what you're bringing here. it's too good, too fast. So just give us a little time to digest. Thank you so much, Todd, though. Okay, now coming up, anchoring the panel, we got Lee. Lee, give it to us. How are you doing? What have you been working on, and what's your background?
Sure, I'm doing well. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today, and thank you to March for Science New York City for inviting me back. I've been involved with March for Science since for several years now, and it's always exciting to come back to learn about updates and just everything that everyone's involved in, and it's really inspiring. And so I'm happy to be here today. And I'm joining you from lovely Durango, Colorado, where I serve as the Associate Vice President for Diversity Affairs and also Special Advisor to the President for Indigenous Affairs at Fort Lewis College. A little bit of information on Fort Lewis College. Fort Lewis College was once a federal Indian boarding school that evolved into a college, and part of that, the college's history is that we have an agreement with the state of Colorado that allows for any eligible Native American and Alaska Native students to attend our institution on a tuition waiver. And that was a federal agreement that was made with the state of Colorado when the land was transferred over from being a fort to the educational campus that we have today. And we really take pride in that because it's one of the few treaties, if you will, that has been honored for quite some time. So we're really happy about that. And my work in diversity, equity, and inclusion really started out with access and equity issues early on in my career. And as we know, we can trace this work all the way back to the civil rights era, where it turned to affirmative action and then became part of the multiculturalism movement. And now we're focusing on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And now the focus is really on creating a sense of belonging on college campuses and institutions and in society today. And as we've seen from what's happening around the country, inclusivity is very important, and just being respectful of the diverse backgrounds that we bring into our lives, into our worlds, and into society. And just one more note on diversity. Diversity is more than just biological constructs. We have visible and invisible dimensions of diversity, and that includes sexual orientation, gender identity, ability, religion, socioeconomic status, military background, etc. And I'm really excited to be here to talk about some of those issues that are affecting Indigenous communities here in our country. And on a personal note, I'm a member of the Navajo Nation, and I am not a mascot. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lee. And thanks for both of you guys for joining us on this panel. I'm really excited to get into it. And just with no further ado, Todd, you gave us a little taste of that Earth Bill, but I want a little more. Can you let us know a little more about, just give us a little deeper dive into what the Earth Bill is all about, please.
Sure.
And use slides if you can.
I just shared my screen. I hope you can see it.
Oh, yeah.
I want to start with the carbon clock. This sets the context of what the urgency is. As you can see from this 1.5 degree scenario, we have 6 years and 8 months before we pump enough pollution into the air that we have locked in 1.5 degrees warming. And then if you click on 2, you see it goes to 24 years from today. So basically we have 7 years to stop our pollution before we hit 1.5, and between 1.5 and 2, there are tipping points that ensue, like the ocean currents that stop melting. So this is an emergency. So I'm going to tell you a little bit more about the Earth Bill. The hardest part in any movement is really coming up with a demand that can be used for mass movement. The demand has to really fix the problem. It has to tackle the political opposition. And as I mentioned, we do 3 birds with 1 stone: big ag, big oil, big pharma. It has to be understandable and actionable for the masses. And that's why this is electricity, cars, and food. And it has to have a catchy name, which we hope the Earth Bill accomplishes. It's important that this bill gives a clear greenhouse gas reductions that really solve the problem is feasible. By setting these mandates in law, you create a market signal that will then spur the private sector build the 100% renewables on that timeline. And the way it works is it makes the utilities buy 100% renewable. So they send out the procurement and then it gets built. Renewables, as we know, are already cheaper, but we need to take it to scale nationwide, hence the mandate. Electric cars, they only have 18 moving parts, I'm told, so there's no repairs, no gas bills, and unlimited mileage. These are already economically going to be the future, but again, it's a race against time. Regenerative ag is the big piece in this. We evidently have 60 harvests left before the soil globally is dead and can't produce food. So we have no choice but to change to regenerative agriculture. And it's 78% more profitable because you're not buying chemicals and pesticides and GMO seeds. And there are many attendant benefits. In this bill, we define big ag to capture the corporations that have 15% or more market share. And so we're really getting at the people who control the farmers and control the land processes. So as I say, it has to be explainable. We think this is it, electric cars and food. It's our consumption, it's our pollution, it's our money that is paying for this. And there are many health benefits. 7 million people are dying from pollution a year, 100 species going extinct a day. And more importantly, this will unite the activists. And we have Fridays for the Future and Extinction Rebellion ready to throw down for this demand. It's something you can get arrested for. And last, I'll just mention our network. It's over 130 local groups and activists organizing by congressional district. This is the local 350 chapter and Sierra Club chapter and Climate Iowa. You get the idea. And these are the people on the ground with the real connections and gravitas to make those Congress people listen. We have a great faith team. The marketing industry is coming into play. And as I mentioned, the youth and direct action. We have open meetings twice a month, and everyone's welcome to join this action. And you can go to our website, climatecrisispolicy.org, and take the pledge. We're starting off with a pledge because the bill is going to be filed soon, we hope, and we need your help really to get the bill filed. There's the logo. And so everyone, by taking the pledge, will be in touch with you, and you can help us get your congressperson to also take a pledge and get this bill filed. Thank you.
Great. climatecrisispolicy.org. Can somebody put that in the chat so we can have a little hot link to it? And if you see it, click it, baby. That's what I'm talking about. Excellent. Thank you so much, Todd. Now, Lee, you mentioned you were working with the new presidential administration on indigenous sovereignty. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? Oh, yeah, I think you might be muted still.
I am muted. So we're reaching out to different organizations, not only locally, but also regionally and nationally, to really start the conversation about how we can work with the new Department of the Interior Secretary, Deb Haaland, the first Indigenous woman and Indigenous person to be named at the cabinet level. So we're very excited about that. And so we believe that there will be inroads that will be made in acknowledging and respecting tribal sovereignty. And what does tribal sovereignty means? We are a nation of nations. And so tribal nations and Alaska Native villages are all officially recognized as federally recognized tribal nations. So what does that mean? That means that we have the ability to engage in government to government relationships with the federal government, the state government, and also local municipalities. Oftentimes people don't understand that. And so that's where people can sometimes think that they have the ability or the right to take away from Indigenous communities and tribal nations. An example of that was the reduction of the Bears Ears National Monument by the previous administration. And so now with the Biden-Harris administration, we're hoping that the conversations will begin to restore some of these national monuments, because these are sacred lands. And in my land acknowledgement earlier today, I talked about how North America, which we refer to as Turtle Island, was all Indigenous land. And so that's the importance of land acknowledgements. But beyond that, how are we really recognizing tribal sovereignty throughout the country? And that's something that's very important. And it really has an impact on the way that we oversee our tribal lands and territories.
Thank you so much. Todd, I just got a note here. Yeah. Okay. Todd, can we talk quickly about business as usual versus what this Earth bill might be accomplishing? Um, because it sort of feels like unless we bend the curve that we're on right now, we might be in a lot of trouble. So what is Earth bill going to change from business as usual?
Yeah, so this is very important. Um, we're talking about putting mandates in law because reversible regulations are not secure enough and they don't give the clear market signal that enables private projects to be banked and financed. And as we heard earlier today, regulations can be attacked and reversed. So these put demands in law. And you just never know from all the trillions of dollars of tax incentives and credits when companies will take advantage of those programs. So you really don't know what the greenhouse gas reduction impacts are going to be. And every bill and every policy that we're looking at that claims to be a climate bill should have precise calculations as to what the greenhouse gas reductions will be on a timeline, because it's time that we are up against. And last, I'll just say the government doesn't make the pollution. The private companies do it. It's our utility companies, it's our cars, it's our food production. So we have to turn off that flow of pollution. The first thing you do is stop digging the grave. And almost nothing we're talking about at the federal level would actually put moratoriums on pollution on a date certain. So that's the big difference. Look at everything that people are telling you and ask them, what are the greenhouse gas reductions and what is the timeline for those? Because if we fail this race against time, we're going to lose our planet and it will be a miserable place. But we have that window. We just have to seize that opportunity. And now is that time. This administration, with Democrats in control of the House and the White House and the Senate, now is the time to do this, to step up and be bold and take that responsibility head on.
Hear, hear. Yeah, powerful stuff. I sometimes hear people talking about like, well, we're not going to lose the Earth. The Earth is going to be here. And it's like, well, do you think we don't know the Earth is going to still be here in like a horrible husk of a version it is? Like I take a little umbrage with people who jump in there. And yes, go ahead, Lee.
I just wanted to add one more thing just to tack onto what Todd said. In indigenous philosophy and culture, we say that we don't own the land. We're only borrowing it from future generations. That's why we need to take care of it. Thank you, everyone. This has been great.
Thank you, Lee. Sorry, I'll go to one more question and I'll clarify here. Okay, so let's end on let's get a kind of a closing thought and also think about what we're currently experiencing in the way the Biden administration is. Sorry, I'm getting a bunch of notes in our private chat. We have a private internal chat here that I'm getting notes on. So yeah, let's get a couple closing thoughts here. So from Todd, can we get maybe one thing you want people to take away, please?
Sure. We would love the scientists to create a scientific advisory board that actually calculates the greenhouse gas reduction impacts from any proposed legislation. And we invite all of you to adopt your own congressional district, along with activists and youth and faith folks who are adopting their district, because we need you in those meetings with Congress. So you can go to climatecrisispolicy.org. You'll see the adopted district. You'll see the Earth Bill. And we would love your help. Political science is a big piece of this. If we could get your help with collective impact analysis and movement analysis, you could really help to unite this movement in a way that would call the question in Congress. We need scientists on all these fronts. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Todd. And Lee, I know you already gave a little bit of a sign off, but if you had to give a takeaway for the people who are watching, what would that be?
I would say gain a better understanding what tribal sovereignty means. Familiarize yourself with the local tribal nations that you live with, and also get involved with national organizations, not only with lobbyists, but also with national scientific organizations like March for Science, the Society for Advancement of Chicanos and Latinx People and Native Americans in Science, SACNIS, the American Indian Science and Engineering Society, otherwise known as ACES. So these are organizations that you can contribute to and be part of the movement, be part of the change and honoring Mother Earth. Thank you.
Excellent. So I am hearing a big final get involved. It sounds like you guys, now is the time to get involved. Now is the time to make a breakthrough, because we're quickly running down the clock, and I don't want to know what happens if we don't change things and we get to the end. Todd and Lee, thank you guys so much for being on the panel. This has been really informative. I really appreciate it. And as always, a huge thanks to our ASL interpreter, Jana. She is lighting it up over there in the upper left-hand panel. At least for me, I don't know which panel she's in for you, but she's killing it. I've actually never gotten the chance to have an ASL interpreter interpret what I'm saying. So I'm just going to say, wow, wow, wow. This is so fire interpreting. Okay, that's pretty cool. Thank you guys so much, and stick around. We got a lot more panels to go, and they're all going to be super informative and interesting. So please stick around. Thank you guys so much. Thanks everybody, and we'll see you guys next time.